Welcome, dear friend, and thank you for choosing to spend your quiet hours with us. It is a good and gentle thing to set aside the day, to let its many thoughts and cares drift away like leaves on a slow stream. And so, I invite you now to find a comfortable place, to let your body feel settled and safe, and to simply breathe. There are no great deeds to be done here, no puzzles to be solved. There is only a quiet path into a peaceful story, made for moments just like this. Our story tonight is a gentle one, a quiet sanctuary woven from soft words and peaceful imaginings, designed to be a balm for the weary mind. Its only purpose is to offer a space for you to rest, to walk alongside a kind soul through a land of profound tranquility, and perhaps to find the gentle slope that leads to restful sleep. Before we begin, and as you prepare to set your device aside, if you find comfort in the tale we are to share, we would be so grateful if you would like this story and subscribe to our channel, so that we may continue to build these quiet places for all who need them. Chapter 1. The First Faint Traces. The path had found Vale more than he had found it, a winding ribbon of slate-gray stones that seemed to appear quite suddenly from the edge of a well-trodden track. It beckoned not with promise, but with a profound sense of quietude, as if the air itself grew softer and more still around its entrance. One moment, the world was filled with the usual sounds of a weary traveler's journey, the crunch of his boots on gravel, the distant bleating of sheep, the ceaseless whisper of the wind, and the next, there was only a deep and settled hush. It was a silence so complete, so ancient, that it felt like a presence in itself, a gentle hand laid upon the shoulder of the world. He took a hesitant step onto the first smooth stone, his worn leather boot making barely a sound, and yet something remarkable happened. Where his foot had landed, a faint, pearlescent shimmer of light bloomed upon the stone surface for a fleeting moment, as soft and transient as a thought, before fading back into the cool gray. Vale paused, his breath held in a moment of quiet wonder. He took another step, and then another, each one leaving a brief, opalescent print that vanished as softly as it had appeared. It was not startling, not a flash of startling magic, but something far more gentle, as if the very stones were acknowledging his passing with a soft and courteous nod. A light breeze, having navigated the gentle slope of the surrounding hills, sighed through a cluster of birch trees nearby. Vale watched, mesmerized, as the sound of the rustling leaves did not simply dissipate into the air. Instead, it blossomed into a drifting, intricate pattern of soft greens and pale browns, a visual echo that hung in the still atmosphere like a wisp of smoke from a snuffed candle. It swirled for a moment, a perfect, weightless map of the breeze's journey through the foliage, before dissolving into nothing. It was the most peaceful and wondrous thing he had ever seen. He felt the weariness in his bones, the quiet ache of long miles traveled, begin to ease. It was not merely the ceasing of his walk, but the gentle immersion in this place that seemed to be actively soothing him. The air was cool and carried the clean, earthy scent of damp soil and moss, a fragrance that spoke of deep, untroubled life. He followed the path of shimmering steps, his gaze drawn forward not by a destination, but by the sheer, simple beauty of the journey itself. The distant, fluting call of a single thrush became a tiny, pulsing orb of pale blue light in the canopy above, a soft beacon that faded as its last note was absorbed by the profound quiet. The path curved gently, and through a parting in the trees, Phelan saw it. A small cottage built of river stone and dark wood sat nestled in the heart of the little valley. It looked as though it had not been built upon the land, but had grown from it, as natural and patient as the old oaks that sheltered it. A thin, gentle thread of pale smoke rose from its stone chimney, not climbing urgently, but rather unspooling into the calm air, as if reluctant to leave its warm source. The sight was one of utter peace, a promise of simple comfort, and a safe harbor from the world. He approached the sturdy wooden door, noticing the small clusters of bell-shaped flowers that grew beside the threshold, their petals a soft creamy white, the scent of warm chamomile, and something akin to freshly baked bread wafted from within, a comforting aroma that seemed to welcome him before he had even thought to knock. There was no need. The door was slightly ajar, an unspoken invitation. He felt the last of his worldly haste fall away from him like a heavy cloak slipping from his shoulders. Standing there on the threshold, Phelan could feel a gentle warmth radiating from within, a soft golden light that pulsed faintly on the worn wooden floor. It was the light of a hearth fire he knew, and the sound of its soft, steady crackle was painting fleeting, warm patterns on the wooden beams of the low ceiling. He felt a profound sense of homecoming, though he had never been here before. This was the Vale of Murmuring Light, though he did not yet know its name. He only knew that he had found a place where peace was not just an absence of noise, but a gentle, visible, and welcoming presence. He stepped inside, his footfall creating a soft, warm shimmer on the wooden planks. The door swung shut behind him with a quiet click, and its sound became a single small spark of amber light that danced for a second before vanishing. Phelan closed his eyes, took a deep, slow breath, and felt the quiet of the vale settle into him, as soft and as welcome as a well-loved blanket. He was home. Chapter 2. The Soft Hum of Stone. From a comfortable high-backed chair nestled by the hearth, a figure looked up as Phelan entered. It was a man, his face a kind map of gentle years, eyes the color of warm honey, and hands that rested peacefully in his lap, hands accustomed to slow, thoughtful tasks. He offered a simple, warm smile, entirely unstartled by Phelan's arrival, as if a quiet visitor was just another natural and pleasant occurrence, like the rising of the sun. This, Phelan would soon learn, was Olin, the gentle keeper of the Vale. Without a word, Olin rose with a slow, unhurried grace and gestured for Phelan to take the other chair, a welcoming seat with well-worn arms and a soft cushion that seemed to sigh with comfort as Phelan sank into it. The warmth from the crackling hearth fire seeped into his chilled bones, a deeply pleasant heat that made his limbs feel heavy and relaxed. Olin moved to a small kitchenette, the soft padding of his slippers on the floorboards leaving faint silvery traces that faded almost instantly. He returned with 2 heavy ceramic mugs, their surfaces warm to the touch, and handed one to Phelan. The mug was filled with spiced cider, and its fragrant steam rose in a beautiful, slow-moving spiral of amber light. Valen watched, captivated, as the wisp of light drifted upwards towards the dark wooden beams of the ceiling, mingling for a moment with the soft, flickering orange patterns being painted by the fire's gentle crackle. The aroma was one of cinnamon, clove, and baked apples, a scent so deeply comforting it felt like a memory of a childhood kitchen he'd never actually had. He took a sip, and the warm, sweet liquid spread a feeling of gentle contentment all through him. They sat for a long while in a comfortable and easy silence, a silence shared, not endured. The only sounds were those of the fire and the quiet sips from their mugs. Olin seemed to understand that Phelan needed this quiet, this time to simply eat. When at last he spoke, his voice was low and soothing, as soft as worn linen. "The Vale is pleased to have a visitor," he said, and Phelan watched amazed, as the words left his lips not just as sound, but as soft, distinct puffs of pale lavender light. They hovered in the air between them for a moment, like small fragrant clouds, before gently dissolving. "It remembers all gentle sounds," Olin explained, his gaze warm and kind. He gestured with an open hand towards the window, where the last light of dusk was filtering through the glass. "It holds them as light for a little while. A gift, I think, a reminder to be gentle." His own explanation created more soft lavender wisps, which mingled with the amber steam from his mug. "There is no great magic to understand," he added, seeming to read Phelan's mind. "One must only watch and listen. The peace comes from the noticing." Phelan looked around the small single room of the cottage. It was a space built for simple, peaceful living. A sturdy bed with a thick quilt was tucked into one corner. A small table and 2 chairs stood near the window, and shelves lined with books, smooth stones, and jars of dried herbs covered one wall. Everything was clean, well cared for, and imbued with a sense of profound, abiding calm. The very wood of the walls seemed to hold a low, resonant hum of contentment, a feeling rather than a sound. It was the hum of countless quiet days, of warm fires and gentle conversations. Later, as a deeper quiet settled over the vale with the falling of night, Olin gestured to the spring, visible from the window as a soft, constant glow of white light at the valley's heart. "That is the echo weave," he said softly, his words again blooming in the dim air of the cottage. "The sound of the water is constant, so its light is constant. It weaves itself around the stones and the reeds. It is the heart of the vale's lullaby." Phelan watched the distant, steady luminescence and felt his own heart rate seeming to slow to match its peaceful rhythm. Phelan felt a deep gratitude welling within him, a feeling so pure and simple it needed no words. He looked at Olin, this gentle keeper of a peaceful world, and simply nodded. Olin nodded back, a perfect understanding passing between them in the quiet, firelit room, the gentle sounds of their shared presence, the shift of weight in a chair, the soft sigh of contentment, the final clink of a mug being set on the hearth, all became tiny, beautiful sparks and wisps of light, a transient tapestry woven from the simple act of 2 souls being at peace in the same small, warm space. Chapter 3. Weaving the Light. The days that followed unfolded as softly and naturally as a fern frond uncurling in the morning light. Phelan found a simple, peaceful rhythm, guided not by the sun's position, but by the gentle inclinations of his own rested spirit. He began to explore the Vale not as a visitor, but as a quiet student, learning its soft and wondrous language. He learned to walk with a deliberate gentleness, not to avoid making noise, but to better appreciate the beautiful, transient art that his movements created upon the land. A soft footfall on the mossy ground would leave a print of deep green light, while a scuff of a boot on a pebble would create a fleeting, flinty spark of white. His favorite place became the slow-moving brook that meandered from the heart of the Vale. He would spend hours sitting on its bank, watching the world's gentle symphony play out before him. The sound of the water burbling over smooth, rounded stones created a constant shifting pattern of silvery blue light on the surface, a liquid music made visible. When a leaf fell from a branch and landed on the water, its tiny splash would create a perfect, expanding ring of pale golden light that grew until it touched the banks and faded away. It was here that he truly came to understand the echo weave. Up close, he could see the intricate, delicate threads of shimmering light that the spring's constant hum created. They clung to the long, slender reeds that grew at the water's edge, wrapping around them like the finest silk. They coated the surfaces of the mossy stones, causing them to pulse with a soft internal white glow. Phelan reached out a hesitant hand and touched one of the glowing reeds. The light felt faintly warm, and a low, resonant vibration traveled up his arm, a feeling of deep and settled peace that seemed to soothe the very marrow in his bones. One afternoon, feeling a sense of quiet joy he had not known for a very long time, Phelan sat by the spring and began to hum. It was a simple, half-forgotten tune from his childhood, a lullaby his mother used to sing. He hummed it softly, not for an audience, but for the sheer, simple pleasure of it. He watched, utterly enchanted, as the notes left his lips and took physical form. Each one became a soft, glowing orb of warm, golden light, floating gently on the air. They formed a chain, a string of luminous pearls that drifted slowly over the surface of the spring before dissolving, one by one, with a silent, glittering sparkle. He tried again, this time a different melody, a more cheerful one. These notes were a brighter yellow, and they bobbed in the air with a little more energy before they faded. A low, melancholic note produced a single, deep indigo sphere that hung in the air for a long time, heavy and beautiful, before it slowly dissipated into the twilight. He realized he was not just making sounds, he was painting with them. He was weaving his own small, transient tapestries of light and adding them to the Vale's gentle masterpiece. Olin would sometimes join him, bringing 2 mugs of mint tea whose steam would create soft pale green wisps of light around their faces. He never instructed or corrected. He simply shared in the quiet observation. "The Vale enjoys a new song," he murmured once, his words a soft lavender puff that mingled with the gold of Phelan's humming. They sat together, watching as a dragonfly zipped past, its buzzing wings leaving a shimmering, iridescent trail in the air that hung for a moment like a fragment of a rainbow. Phelan found himself helping Olin in the garden, a small patch of earth where they grew sweet carrots and tender lettuces. The gentle sounds of their work became part of the Vale's art. The snip of Olin's shears trimming a plant was a quick, silvery flash. The rustle of Phelan pulling a weed from the soft earth was a low, crumbly brown glow around his hands. And when they used the watering can, the sound of the water showering the thirsty plants created a beautiful, shimmering mist of blue and green light that settled over the garden like a benediction. In these simple, repetitive tasks, Phelan felt a deep and abiding connection to the world around him. He was not just an observer anymore. He was a participant. His breath, his movements, his very voice were all contributing to the gentle beauty of the Vale. The weight he had carried for so long, the unnoticed tension in his shoulders and the furrow in his brow, had been replaced by a light and easy grace. He was learning to live in harmony, not just with this magical place, but with the quiet, gentle rhythm of his own being. Chapter 4. The Stillness Between Notes. A time came when Phelan no longer felt the need to explore, or to hum, or even to move. A deep and profound sense of tranquility had settled over him, so complete that his own thoughts, once a restless flock of birds, had come to roost. They quieted until they were as still and clear as the Vale's deepest pools, reflecting the simple beauty around him without a single ripple. The desire to do was replaced by the simple, peaceful contentment of being. He spent an entire afternoon sitting on a single large slab of granite that had been warmed by the gentle, diffused light of the midday sun. The stone was smooth and comfortable, and as he settled onto it, he felt its pleasant warmth seep into him, releasing a final, unnoticed knot of tension deep in his back. From this vantage point, he could see much of the valley. He simply sat, and he watched. He was not waiting for anything to happen. He was simply appreciating the gentle, constant happening of the world. He watched the low, contented hum of a large bumblebee as it moved with slow purpose from one soft bell-shaped flower to another. Its sound was a fuzzy, vibrating sphere of buttery yellow light that accompanied it on its journey, a perfect visual representation of its busy, peaceful work. He observed a light breeze, a mere sigh in the air, as it traveled across a field of tall, feathery grass. The sound of its passage became a magnificent, cascading sheet of pale white light, a silent wave that washed over the field, causing the tips of the grass to shimmer and glow for a long, beautiful moment. His focus narrowed to the smallest of things. He saw a line of ants marching with great solemnity across his stone. Their tiny collective footsteps made no discernible sound to his ears, and yet he could see a faint, thread-like line of shimmering silver light tracing their path, a testament to the Vale's ability to hear even the quietest of efforts. He felt a sense of gentle wonder, an appreciation for the immense and beautiful tapestry of life that was constantly being woven, seen, and unseen. The very concept of time seemed to have softened its edges here. An hour or a minute, it made no difference. Time was measured not by a clock or the sun's arc, but by the gentle fading of one sound light and the soft birth of another. It was the time it took for the echo of a dropping pine cone, a sharp brown spark, to fade away. It was the time it took for the pale blue orb of a distant bird's song to pulse 3 times before dissolving into the canopy. The slow, natural cadence lulled his mind into a state of pure meditative presence. He closed his eyes, not to sleep, but to listen with his other senses. He could feel the gentle warmth of the stone beneath him, the soft touch of the breeze on his cheek. He could smell the rich, loamy scent of the earth, the faint, sweet perfume of the wildflowers, and the clean, crisp fragrance of the pines on the hillsides. His breathing had become slow, deep, and effortless, each exhalation feeling like a release of something he no longer needed to hold. He felt grounded, connected to the warm stone and the living earth, as if he were a part of the landscape itself. When he opened his eyes again, the light had begun to change. The sun was dipping below the western hills, and the vale was being bathed in the soft ethereal hues of twilight. The echo weave by the spring caught the last rays of the sun and flared for a moment with a breathtaking warm golden light, a final beautiful chord before the cool blues and purples of the evening began their soft prelude. The world was preparing for its nightly rest, and Phylon felt that same sense of peaceful readiness settle within himself. There was no thought of yesterday or tomorrow, no lingering worry or restless plan. There was only this moment, this perfect, gentle stillness between the notes of the world's song. It was a silence that was not empty, but full. It was full of the memory of light, the presence of peace, and the deep, quiet joy of a mind completely and utterly at rest. In that quiet, Phylon understood that the greatest gift of the Vale was not the light it showed, but the stillness it allowed one to find within oneself. Chapter 5. A Silence Carried Home. The morning of Phylon's departure arrived not with a sense of finality, but with the gentle, natural feeling of a tide turning. He awoke feeling a profound sense of restoration, a quiet contentment that had settled deep within his bones, as if the peace of the Vale had become a part of his very being. The weary traveler who had stumbled upon this path was gone, and in his place was a man whose spirit felt as clear and calm as the Vale's own spring water. He knew it was time to leave, but he also knew with a quiet certainty that he would never truly be far from this place. He shared one last cup of calming chamomile tea with Olin by the morning fire. They sat in their usual comfortable silence, a silence now rich with shared understanding and quiet friendship. The only conversation was the gentle language of the cottage itself, the soft, glowing pops of the fire, the pale green wisps of light rising from their mugs, and the gentle hum of the morning light filtering through the window pane. There were no goodbyes to be said, for nothing felt like it was ending. It was simply a continuation. When the mug was empty, Phylon stood and gave Olin a simple grateful nod. Olin smiled his warm, kind smile and placed a hand on Phelan's shoulder for a moment. The touch was warm and steady, a silent blessing. "The path will remember you," Olin said softly, his words blooming into 2 perfect lavender clouds that hung in the sunlit air of the cottage. "And the silence you found here you will carry with you. It is yours to keep now." Phelan stepped out of the cottage and into the cool, fresh air of the dawn. The vale was alive with the soft lights of the morning. The chirps of the waking birds were like scattered handfuls of bright, glittering jewels in the trees. The dew dripping from leaves onto the soft earth created tiny, shimmering splashes of silver. He walked the path of smooth stones, and his footfalls once again left their brief, pearlescent prints. But now he saw them not with wonder, but with a fond sense of familiarity. They were the vale's gentle way of waving farewell. He paused at the edge of the valley, where the quiet path of slate-gray stones rejoined the wider world. He looked back one last time, not with sadness, but with a heart full of quiet gratitude. He saw the cottage, nestled in its peaceful embrace, with a gentle thread of smoke already beginning its slow, lazy ascent from the chimney. He saw the steady white glow of the echo weave by the spring, the constant, beating heart of the vale's tranquility. He took it all in, emitting the gentle memory to his heart. As he turned and took his first step back onto the gravel of the outer world, he noticed something. The crunch of his boot was, to his ear, just as it had been before. But within his own mind he could almost see it, a faint, brownish sparkle. He listened to the whisper of the wind in the ordinary trees beyond the vale, and he could imagine its pale, swirling pattern. The vale had not just shown him its magic, it had taught him a new way of sensing the world, a way of finding the hidden light and gentle music in ordinary things. The path ahead was clear and calm, and he walked with a lighter step than he had in years. The weight was gone, replaced by a quiet, steady peace. He carried no grand revelation, no powerful enchantment, only a simple, profound silence that now lived within him. It was a sanctuary he could return to with a simple, deep breath. He walked on, and the memory of the Vale of Murmuring Light did not fade. Instead, it became a soft, glowing ember within his soul, a gentle echo he could listen to whenever the world became too loud, and he knew, with a quiet and happy certainty, that its peaceful light would be enough to illuminate his way for all the days to come.